Welcome to the Explosive Strength Podcast with Jared Bidney. This episode, we're going to talk about why we box squat. Now, I did an episode about this a couple years ago, but it was never on YouTube, and I've got a lot of new listeners, so we're just going to get into why do we box squat? Well, why do we box squat? Well, you can kill two birds with one stone by box squatting. And what do I mean by that? Well, box squatting increases rate of force development and absolute strength at the same time because it implements the static dynamic method. So when you're box squatting, we're not just squatting to a box. A lot of people you'll see touch and go, or they'll fall down or try to use a box for some type of height or how low to go and things like that. Well, if they're just touching and going or bouncing off the box, they're not implementing the static dynamic method. Like I've said in plenty of other episodes, it's the method behind it, the exercise, that gives you the results. If you just were going to touch and go to a box, might as well just regular squat because you're not implementing the static dynamic method. Now, the static dynamic method, what it does is it breaks up the eccentric concentric chain. So when you squat to a box and you fully sink into it, you pause for a second or two, then you stand up explosively or as fast as you can. You're using the static dynamic method, a static action overcome dynamically or as quick as you can. You want to use compensatory acceleration. Although the action may be moving slow, there's a big explosion in the muscle because once you apply brief maximum tension to box squatting, now you have maximum intermuscular and intramuscular coordination. So the same muscle has to fire at the same time. Now it's also got to coordinate with the entire body to try to create that subsequent action, which is standing up. So squat, let that kinetic energy dissipate, stand up as explosively as you possibly can. Although you may be moving slow, 5 meters per second or somewhere around there, what's happening is you're getting optimal discharge frequency of the alpha motor neurons. And you've heard me talk about the alpha motor neurons before. You can look it up. If you look up alpha motor neuron, Google, whatever site you use, it almost looks like your arm or a branch, and at the end of that branch is fingers. And so by demanding that body to fire at optimal discharge frequency, you may only have maybe your thumb and your pinky contracting or trying to squeeze like a sheet of paper or trying to squeeze something. And over time, maybe your middle finger gets down, your ring finger gets down, then your pointer finger gets down. Now, with 5 fingers, you're able to squeeze whatever it is, whether the alpha motor neuron, the more in units we can get to adhere to the tissue, the harder and faster that tissue can contract. Now, you got to think, box squatting, you have to apply the SAID principle, specific adaptations to impose demands. Again, the SAID principle, specific adaptations to impose demand. Now, if I came in and I box squatted one day and I came in and I front squatted the next day and I changed up that stimulus all the time, I am not imposing a specific demand on my body constant enough to get the desired result. So again, the static dynamic method is a method that helps to create explosive strength. We're increasing our absolute strength. So we're going from 400 to 500 pounds in the squat, or we're going from 2 to 3, or whatever it is that you're trying to do. As you're increasing strength, instead of just squatting alone, you're actually increasing your rate of force development at the same time because you're implementing the static dynamic method, which pulls on the nervous system a lot more. Now, if you bring out your handy dandy super training book and you want to type in how to create explosive strength, you use reactive methods or contrast methods. And those could either be plyometrics, or the contrast methods would be like a load release, heavy light, stripping, pneumatics, and static dynamic. So you'll see some people will put weight releases on, they'll overload it, they'll squat down, and they'll stand up more explosively. So they may put 105% on the load releaser, so whatever your max is, at 105%, squat down, the weight releasers fall off, and you stand up with a lesser action, and that's a load release, except for you're only getting 1 rep in at a time. Now, for an advanced, someone that has a higher training age, that may or may not work. But you got to think, I've tested a 40-yard dash every month for the last 15, 16 years on all kind of different athletes. You'll have them improve their 40-yard, like for most of the people that box squat and dumbbell jump, they will increase their 40-yard dash on average 1/10 of a second per month over time. And through this episode, we're going to go how I came up with the height and different things and the results and just other things like that. So if you want a fitness quality and you want to create explosive strength, remember, you got to use reactive methods, either contrast methods or plyometrics. Well, being that if you've heard me listen to me on several other episodes, you know I'm not a component of track. Track is a highly elastic sport. I don't deal with track athletes. I deal with sport athletes, baseball, softball, soccer, football. And so those sports, you have to be more strength dominant in. As far as track, those are going to be more elastic dominant. Now, Jared, what's the difference? The more elastic you are, like plyometrics, basically muscle conservation. You're trying to save muscle energy over time. And so that's why you take someone, and it's been well documented, you've got people talk about it. Even Paul Anderson was a 5'10", 365 white guy that was a weightlifter. He would beat the Olympic sprinters in the first 15 meters just because he had sheer strength. Now, with that sheer strength, you're able to overcome your own inertia. So the quicker you're able to overcome your own inertia, the faster you're able to get off the line. Look at Bolt over time. Most of the time, if the races were at 50 meters, he would lose. Over time, he starts to prevail and win the race. But a lot of his races, he's middle of the pack at about the 50-meter mark. So his ability to accelerate is not there, but his ability to continue to accelerate over a longer period of time is really good. And so with track, what I mean by elastic, you're trying to do plyometrics. You want to hear people like, hey, where do we do plows? Where do we do plows? Well, if I'm a linebacker and I'm in the middle of the field, I got about 12, 13 yards to my right is the sideline, and about 12, 13 yards to the left is the other sidelines. So you're always going to be in acceleration mode. So if I got to get from linebacker, which is 5, 7 yards off the ball, and I got to hit that hole, I have to have the ability to accelerate. And the ability to accelerate is strength dominant based. Now, I've had strength dominant people that can run a 4 or 5 40-yard dash, short distance, but then they run a 13-second 100. Not very good in the 100. And so a lot of stuff that people put out there has to do with track. Track. So they're going to base all the running and all the programming off of track. Well, you got to think, how many people do you know that have tested a 40-yard dash every month for the last 15, 16 years? I'm pretty much it. And so I see these numbers improve year after year, month after month, time after time. So because if I'm at first base and I'm trying to get to second base, that's 30 yards. I got to be able to accelerate, get there to steal that base. I don't have time to get into the elastic mode of the body to get there. So like if you're only going to reach the elasticity part about 30 yards past the acceleration phase, which is between 20 and 25 yards. So if your sport is played 25 yards or less, you need to be more strength dominant. So like if you're going to be in soccer and you all of a sudden need to make a break to get to a ball, you have to accelerate. You don't have time to be elastic, So with sports constantly changing directions, 15 yards or less, you really never get into the elastic mode so you're going to work doing plows and doing all this stuff, and you're not reaping the benefit of your work. You're almost going to work without getting paid. It's almost like building a plane and never flying in it. What the freak's the point? So you're spending so much time and effort building and working over here, but you really need to be over here. And through popularity of social media and things like that, people don't understand. So you got to think, you have to be strength dominant. Well, the good thing about box squatting is it allows you to increase your rate of force development and absolute strength at the same time. And if you do it right and you program it using the brief maximum tension method, 5 or less reps at very strenuous compensatory acceleration stuff, you'll be surprised at what happens. But so many people, like I've heard people say, hey, the athlete got slower. Well, slower at what? Well, if you look at the in-depth of what they're saying that it made them slower at track. And it made them slower at the 100. If you are too muscular dominant, you will not be a very successful 100 or 200 meter sprinter or even 400 meter. But if you are strength dominant, you will be a very good athlete that can accelerate. So for short distances, and that's what most sports are playing at, unless you're a wide receiver or DB, that once you catch the ball and you got to continue to go. That's why you'll see some people that can accelerate. then they get caught. They don't have that elastic. So a lot of athletes, your baseball players, your softball players, your soccer players, the only one people probably need is your DBs and wide receivers. Even your running backs they need to be able to hit the hole hard. It makes it harder to tackle. So again, let's recap. Why do we box squat? We can kill two birds with one stone. What I mean that we're increasing rate of force development and absolute strength at the same time. So, and again, you'll see people that squat to a box. They're not sitting, releasing the energy and standing back up. They're just kind of tapping and going. Well, they're not utilizing the static dynamic method. Again, you have to utilize these methods behind the exercise to produce the desired result. So if you see someone box squatting, they're tapping and going, they're squatting to a box, but they're not box squatting, okay? So another thing over time is with the box, you're squatting to a consistent height. So if you, in the power formula right here, so power equals force times distance over time. And however, if you keep the distance consistent, you can build subsequent strength through force, since the force comes from your strength. So since force comes from your strength, you can rewrite the formula as power is strength over time. The greater amount of strength you can display in a certain period of time, the greater your explosives will be. And that's what box squat helps you do. We got a consistent height. We have to display that strength in a certain period of time because you only got from point A to point B to stand up with it. So if we can keep that height consistent, we can substitute force, since force comes for our strength, with strength. So now you got power equals strength over time. And that helps us, as we'll get on with this episode, getting to the strength ratios. Because when you're trying to monitor and trying to check results on a monthly basis, you have to cut out variables. And the problem with regular squats and most athletes, they're mental. And so they'll cheat a rep here, they'll cheat a rep there. And so if I want someone to squat all the way down to where their hamstrings are touching their calves and stand back up, over time, they'll start cheating the rep. Or now they're only getting to parallel. You need to get lower than parallel because you're going to recruit your glutes a lot more. And so by box squatting, we can keep the height consistent. So that cuts out that variable as to why something is or is not working. And but saying that, I do have my younger athletes regular squat, because if you take a kid that has never regular squatted, what they'll do when they do a box squat is they'll just plop on the box. They don't have the eccentric strength to lower and control the weight. And so what you'll see is you'll see people. So if you see all this, you'll see a person sit on a box, or they kind of plop on it, and then to stand up, their feet shoot out to the side. Then they're able to kind of bow their knees in and stand up with the weight. That's not good, because you have to create vertical forces. And so when your feet spread out to the side, and if you were to take a graph and you would take an angle, that hip angle to the foot, those forces cross in the body, dissipating the vertical forces that you're trying to create. So you're trying to create that vertical force so that can help you in your jump height. If you increase your jump height and you work on your jumping, so if you just squatted and you did your dumbbell jumps, you are maximizing, you're getting the static dynamic method with the box squatting, but you're getting the speed strength method with the dumbbell jumps. So by utilizing the speed strength method, now you have capped out all your things. So if someone just came in, they just did squatting, box squat, and dumbbell jumps for the day. If they were beat up, they had something else to do from school, they come in and get that over with and have no issues. So again, and if they're regular squatting at school, that's good, because now they have developed a different characteristic that I don't even have to worry about developing later. Now, for my younger athletes that I do, like I got some folders here. I should have brought the other one home. But anyway, this is a 10-year-old girl. She went from running 6:07 to running a 5:79 and 1, 2, 3 months. Just because she got stronger. Now, my other athletes will, like I've got a little girl right now, and 5 months she knocked off, she's 11 now. In 5 months, she knocked off 11/10 of a second in her 40-yard dash. And the good thing about that is I'm not teaching them how to run. I'm not doing anything. I'm just showing them how to put their hand down, because when we do our 40-yard dash, it's completely laser timed with the Brauer timing system. It's much more strict than the free lap. The free lap and some of these other systems, you have this clip on your belt, so you got a window to where you're actually getting moving before that sensor crosses that Bluetooth line to kickstart the start. So they'll have better 10s and 20s, but if you look at it over time, they'll have good 40s or whatever they're trying to measure, but it's not as strict as the Brower. And so I had two guys that flew out to go to some combine, and I've had a guy come to the gym, and we've compared what they use, Zybex Sports, at the NFL Combine, and some of these showcases right now are using that timing system in the Brower, and that is very, very close. Sometimes almost the exact same time, but sometimes the Zybex had some guys like Dorsey at a 4.4, but as fast as at the gym at that time, because I overlapped them together, so I was not getting one separate run from each. I timed them at the exact same time. So I had the Brower and the Zybex on top of the Brower, so that as we was running, we were getting comparable results instead of running 140, the next 40 with another system, and so forth and so on. So we did several runs, several different kids. And sometimes the Zybex was right on, and sometimes Dorsey and Anderson got a little bit better time with the Zybex. So again, the Brower is a little bit more strict. It's very sensitive to your hand movement. But these two guys that just flew out to a combine got the same time on the Zybex as they did at the gym with the Brower. And that's what I'm trying to do. So when someone leaves the gym, hey, look, these kids came to me, their dad said they ran a 4.6 40-yard dash. They weren't even close. They both ran a 5-something their first time, a 5.1 and a 5.2, or 5.1 and a 5 flat, somewhere in that range. Now they're much faster than that because of the training. I made them box squat. And so if I have to get someone faster in a 40-yard dash, especially if they have a showcase coming up, we're going to box squat. But for a young kid that needs to develop general strength, they can still get faster because the kids most of the time will squat all the way down, ass to grass, like you're supposed to. The lower you go, the more flexibility you build, the greater strength you build, and the greater range of motion. And you're also recruiting more of your glute muscles the lower you go. When you squat above parallel, you're actually creating shearing forces on your ACL. So you see some of these people that have in these books where they do quarter squats to improve this strength. That's not good because your ACL is taking a beating. So go beat your ACL up in the weight room by doing your quarter squats, half squats, or whatever you want to do. Then go to the field and run or have to cut. Now, because you're not going to feel if your ligaments and tendons are fatigued or sore. So let's go fatigue this. Let's go to the field. Oh, damn, now we got a torn ACL because these people do not understand or even look up what biomechanics are. So if you can look up the biomechanics, you got more compressive forces when you drop your hips below the knee. And so that's why I like for my athletes, when we are doing our regular squat, the squat calf to hamstring or hamstring to calf, because now we got compressive forces. The knee needs to be able to be compressed and decompressed, not have the shearing forces that go across the ACL by doing anything higher than parallel. Now, box heights. How did I come up with the box height as far as what we do? And wide stance versus close stance. Well, it was all by mistake. I heard Louis Simmons, Westside Barbell, talk about he had someone squat down to a 12-inch box. Well, when I first started squatting, I was squatting to a 16-inch box with maybe a 2-inch foam pad that was more stiff, and I could squat more weight, but I was not getting my jump results that I wanted to. Remember, because I've got to train these athletes to go outside the gym and not just make me happy. They have to go perform well outside the gym so that they can increase their scholarship potential. And so I heard Lou said he had one of his guys squat down to a 12-inch box, close stance, and could sit on it and stand up. I said, so I went to the gym, tried that. It was much harder. So I said, let's just get stronger in the hardest possible way. And then I found out that I use a blue soft pad, and instead of just squatting down to the box itself, you got some of these high school coaches squatting their kids down to a bench. The benches are typically 16 inches, which is already too tall, which is what I was doing when I was squatting with a wider stance. And squatting with a wider stance, you're not going to be as more quad dominant. And to have great acceleration, you need to be more quad dominant. You need to have a little bit more vertical force going on your quads. If you got your feet out wide, and you sit back like Lou used to do, you got to think. Louis Simmons used to have these athletes, or his athletes, which were powerlifters, and he did train some athletes. They would use briefs in the gym. And to get the maximum out of the briefs or the gear, you have to sit back. And he said, Lou would say, box squats like a leg curl. Well, again, Lou's mind was still in the track and field industry, the running, And that's kind of how everybody's programmed. What I'm trying to say is what's helping the 40-yard dash? What's helping you, your home to first or your first to second or whatever? Maybe you need to get a jump on a fly ball in the outfield. Maybe you need to try to do a better job stealing base. Maybe you're in soccer. You need to try to, that ball's loose and you can accelerate faster than the guy next to you. You're going to win. So you have to be more quad dominant. Now, with you spreading your feet out wider and spreading the floor, and your shins are vertical, you're going to be a little bit more hamstring dominant. Well, that may help you in track, but that's not going to help you in your ability to accelerate. So that's why we got into more of the closed stance stuff versus the wide stance stuff, and the soft box versus the hard box. Now, if you were to go sit on your couch or sit on a kitchen chair, the couch cushion is softer, so it's going to absorb more force. And the kitchen chair, it's harder. It's easier to get up off of the harder surface. Well, if it's easier to get up off the harder surface, it's not going to transfer as much because that soft pad's absorbing some of that energy that you stored on the way down as far as when you're box squatting. So you sit in that couch cushion, you have to try harder to get up. So you're going to have a much greater neural drive as far as more alpha motor neurons being fired and discharged at optimal discharge frequency at the same time. And so by utilizing the static dynamic method with the brief max potential method, that's where you get these alpha motor neurons at optimal discharge frequency. Now you're calling on all five fingers. It's the Hennin and size principle if you want to look that up. So the Hennin and size principle, the order at which the fibers fatigue. So if the load's too light, if you're doing 6 or more reps, and I'm just talking when you're box squatting. Now for my people that I have regular squatting, I'm not worried about that. I'm trying to build some type of structural integrity. I'm trying to get them to learn and control. I'm trying to get their mobility. I'm trying to get them general strength. And sometimes that general strength will get them faster, but there's going to be a point in time where it's going to stop. They're not going to get faster because of the general strength gains. Now we have to bring in a method behind the squatting. But I even have some I got a kid. He's a high school junior right now. Last year we started off box squatting and his first month he ran a 5.28. His next month, he ran a 5.16. Next month, he ran a 5.03. And the next month, he ran a 4.88. All while going the next month, he ran a 4.90. The next month, he ran a 4.87. And so we had a little stagnation there because we still went from a 5.2 to a 4.87. 5.28 to a 4.87. That's exactly 0.4 of a second. But he went from 177 pounds to 205 pounds. So he gained 28 pounds and got 0.4 of a second faster. He went up from a 32-inch vertical to a 37-inch vertical. And so now I had proved to his dad that, hey, this box squatting, he's getting faster. He's able to jump higher. His broad jump went from an 8.3 to a 9.5. So our vertical was up, our broad jump was up, our 40-yard dash time was faster, and we were heavier. So now when that running back hits that hole, you've got that extra 28 pounds moving at 0.4 of a second faster. So his ability to accelerate's higher. His ability to weigh more. So he's going to have a lot more impact when he comes through there. Now you'll see some people, like I had a linebacker years ago, thought that he had to do speed training, does not listen. And I got him from a 4.9 to a 4.6, and thought that he needed to do speed training. Well, you know what they did in speed training? They overrun him. He lost 15, 20 pounds and ran the same damn thing by losing all the weight. So he didn't get any faster. He just got a little bit lighter. So now you got a lighter athlete, same speed, producing 0 results. So here's another kid. Box squatting, 4.82, 4.77, 4.66, then 4.59. You're looking, this is 1 month, second month, third month, and fourth month. So I tested the first month. The second month, he ran a 4.82. At the next month, he ran a 4.77. In the next month, he ran a 4.66. At the next month, he ran a 4.59. Now, the kid before that one that I told you, he went from a 5.28 to a 4.87 with a 28-pound weight gain. This is the high school junior that ran a 4.91 1 month and a 4.97 this year. So he came back at the start of November. He ran a 4.99. At the end of November, he ran a 4.99. And at the end of December, he ran a 4.97. 4.9, 4.9, 4.9. So we're staying in the 4.9 range. Why are we not moving? Because I am regular squatting him. His dad knows that I can make him faster. So we have stuck. So last year went from a 5.2 to a 4.8. Now for 3 months in a row, I have been regular squatting. I'm trying to build some type of structural integrity, a little bit more resilient with the body. With the regular squatting, you can ligaments and tendons a little stronger. Range of motion is going to be stronger. His eccentric strength is going to be stronger. I am trying to get him to a 4.05 ass to grass regular squat. Once I get him there, I'm going to go back to box squat, and you'll just see the numbers just fall off. Hopefully, we're trying to get to a 4.5 or a 4.6 with the Brower. Now, these 4.5s and 4.6 with the Brower, if you're getting timed on other biceps, they're going to be 4.4s all day long. So that's what I'm trying to show you, is that for 3 months in a row, but his dad knows what I'm doing. But I had to prove it the last year, because when he came to me last year is when he knocked off those 4 tenths a second and gained 28 pounds. They know it's possible. I said, if you regular squat, more than likely you will not get faster. So that's what's happening right there. And years ago, I'll show you that in a minute. I had this girl, and she was super slow. So it don't even matter what speed you are. Over time, if you do the box squat, you will get faster. But the box squat needs to be at a certain height. You just can't raise it to whatever. And so this girl, when she started, she ran a 7.8 40-yard dash. Next month, she ran a 7.7. Next month, she ran a 7.3. Next month, she ran a 7.2. 7.8, 7.7, 7.3, 7.2, 6.88. Those were all box squat numbers. When people, I can show them these folders. I try to bring folders out for people when they come in the gym. If I got a new parent or whatever showing up, I'm showing them month after month. So you got January, February, March, April, May, and July. I don't know what happened in June, but you see it month after month. This was in 2017. And so then once I took her off the box squat and I made her regular squat, her numbers went from a 6.8 to a 7 flat. Another month, again, 7.1. And they start going in panic mode. Why am I getting slower? I told you you're going to get slower if you start regular squat. But I did not like plopping on the box, sit down, feet spread apart. That's not good for them, because then the box squatting, if they're starting to do that, then we're not going to yield the results out of the box squat that we need to. So that's not cool. And so this kid, this is 2011. You got September 2011, October of 2011, November of 2011, December of 2011, January of 2012. He took off track season, April of 2012, May of 2012. So February, March, 2 months he did not test. They came back April, May, June, July, August of 2012, and September of 2011. What I'm doing saying all this is first month he ran a 5.1, next month he ran a 5 flat, next month he ran a 4.9, next month he ran a 4.87, next month he ran a 4.74, next month he ran a 4 January. So then with track season, after track, he ran a 4.73. And then after tracks, so in April, in January, he ran a 4.74 and a 4.76, and then took off February and March. After track season, he did not slow down, which is very surprising because it usually happens. He ran a 4.77 and a 4.73. Then May, he ran a 4.68, and then June, he ran a 4.53. He took off a couple of weeks in June and went to a 4.7 and a 4.68, then back down to a 4.57. So what I'm trying to say, in 1 year, this kid went from 190-pound body weight, missed a few months here and there, so not all full 12-month training cycle. He weighed in 190 pounds in September 2011. And in September of 2012, he weighed 205. So he went from 190-pound body weight to 205-pound body weight. His 40 went from a 5.14, 5.17, 5.1 to a 4.5 and a 4.62. 4.57, 4.62. So he still averaged a 4.5 at 15 pounds body weight heavier. His vertical went from a 30.7 to a 42.3. His broad jump went from 8.10 to a 9.8. And that was within a year over time. And I saw this. I don't have this kid's face, or I don't know who the heck's folder this is, but they did a pretty good job of keeping track of their vertical stuff. So within 2 years, this kid went from a 24.3 to a 37.4 40-yard dash. 2 years. 2 years now. 24 to a 37, from a 6.19 40-yard dash, 6.19, 6.36 at a body weight of 109. 2 years later, he weighed in at 161 pounds, ran a 4.82 and a 4.80 with a 37-inch vertical. And so that's not bad. So it takes time, long enough for them to trust me over time. Like that one kid knows he's November 4.9, December 4.9. So beginning of 4.9, end of 4.9, end of December 4.9. So I'm trying to test on a monthly basis to make sure that what I'm doing is working. Now, if I do have some of my online people regular squatting, I'm just trying to build integrity, because the younger they are, it don't really matter about box squatting right now, because no one's going to be a superstar in middle school, even as a ninth grader. So you got time. I may box squat them sometimes, and I may take the box squat away because I still have time, being that they started so young. So the younger they start, the more of a freak they could be later on. And like I said, I came up with this because Lou said 12-inch box, so I took the 16-inch box, got away from the bench, and I started squatting to a 12-inch box with a blue soft pad on it. That blue soft pad, the 12-inch box allows us to go to a greater range. Now, you've heard me talk on other podcasts as how to, I have increased the box height. Like I did this for one of my athletes that played baseball. I increased the box height by 2 inches, and he went from a 4.8, 4.9, 5 flat, and I took back down to the 12 inches, and he started getting faster. So, and over time, like I just read earlier, strength over time equals power. And the greater your strength in a short period of time is your explosiveness, how your rate of force development is. And the thing is after seeing these 40s and all this time, I had a kid come to me, Jared, I ain't got stronger, but I ain't getting any faster. Well, what's your body weight? Then I started coming in with these box squat ratios. And so what I've done is, if you can squat 1.7 times your body weight at 6 meters per second, remember, I'm just trying to eliminate these variables. You squat 1.7 at 0.6 meters, 1.7 times your body weight at 0.6 meters per second should yield you a 4.7 something 40-yard dash. Now, here's a kid. He weighed 185 pounds. He ran a 4.78 40-yard dash. His ratio was a 1.7. So I'm going to go down this list, find another 1.7. Okay. This kid squatted 1.7. This other kid squatted 1.7 times his body weight. The first kid weighed 185. The other kid weighed 220 pounds. So 185-pound kid versus 220-pound kid. The body weight don't matter because they're squatting a certain weight against their body weight. So they're both being able to move it 1.7 times their body weight at 6 meters per second. One ran a 4.77. The other one ran a 4.78. See how close that is? So this other kid, let me see if I got okay. This other kid squatted 1.46 times his body weight at 250 pounds. So 1.46. This other kid squatted 1.47 at 190 pounds. So a 60-pound weight difference, but both ratios, 1.46 versus 1.47, basically the same thing. So that 1.46 versus we're only off by 0.01. Well, guess what? The 40-yard dash was off. So the 1.46, which was a little bit, ran a 5.02, and the 1.7 ran a 5.03. So there's that 0.01 difference in their 40-yard dash showings. Now, if you squat 1.4 something times your body weight, you should run a 5.0. And so then I had another kid that probably getting in the back over here. Yep. He started off at 196 pounds. His ratio was a 1.45. So that first month, these are all still box squat numbers. Remember, the ratios are coming from the box squat. They're not coming from regular squat. And more importantly, these ratio numbers are coming from box squatting with a safety squat bar. So the 501, 504, 495, 496, 478, 479. So January, he was a 5 flat. February, he was a 4.9. And March, he was a 4.7. He went from a 32.2 inch vertical to a 38.1 inch vertical. Went from a 196 pound body weight to 203 pound body weight. Heavier, faster, stronger. He went from moving 285 at 0.61 meters per second to moving 355 at 0.63 meters per second. So gained some weight, went from a 5 flat to a 4.7, all while box squatting. And so this one kid, over time, he went to a speed place. You know, the speed places can do more plyometrics and try to do all this hoopla stuff that's not necessary. This is a baseball player. He's got to run a fast 60-yard dash. There's going to be more strength component than elastic component and a 60-yard dash. So he went from 5.3 first month to a 5.2 the next month to a 5.1 to a 5 flat. Skipped the 4.9 and got a 4.8, then a 4.77. So he skipped a tenth of a second after he was already starting gains. So you can't say that they're newbie gains. They're gains on gains on gains. And the body weight, what did the body weight do? I did not track his body weight. Damn, Jared, failure. So this kid went from, again, did not track his body weight, 5.1, 5 flat, 4.9, 4.8. December, January, February, March. So from testing in December at a 5.10 and to testing in March, he ran a 4.86. So that's pretty good. Went from a 31-inch vertical to a 35-inch vertical, 35.5-inch vertical. So just trying to show that over time, all these things have been developed while box squatting. So again, that's why we box squat, because it's going to improve our sprint numbers, especially in our short distance. If you need someone to run a faster 20, if you need someone to run a faster 40, or even up to a faster 60-yard dash, box squatting is going to give you the absolute strength. It's going to give you the consistent height to where they're always squatting out the same thing. You're implementing a method behind the exercise. You're just not using it as a tool. Remember, people are squatting with a box, but they're not box squatting. They have to actually sit for a second or two, slightly relax the muscle. Don't hold tension at the bottom. You have to let some of that kinetic energy that you stored up on the way down dissipate. Then you have to overcome that subsequent action as dynamically and as explosively as you possibly can. And remember, just because the weight is moving slow does not mean there's not a big explosion in the muscle. That big explosion in the muscle comes from the firing of all muscle fibers at the same time. If you look at the Hendon size principle, like if the load's too light, you're going to fire the muscles and you're going to use slow twitch, intermediate. Then you're going to call on your fast switch fibers, and those fast switch fibers are only called upon in a fatigued state. If you need someone to get off the ball quicker, if you need them to be, boom, more explosive, you have to have all fibers fire at optimal discharge frequency. And the only way to make those fibers fire at optimal discharge frequency is have heavy enough load to call for that demand, specific adaptations to impose demand. And if I demand that after my athletes, I'll get some middle fingers thrown at me. I'll get, Jared, I hate you, and all this other stuff. I am imposing specific demands on their body in order to force that body into adaptation so that we show up at our test results in a positive manner. So again, if you're not imposing specific answers, you have to utilize methods. You got to utilize the science. You can look up science and practice strength training. You can look up several of these other things, and you cannot switch front squat to back squat. So a lot of these colleges, if they're not squatting the same way all week long, month after month, they're not going to utilize a result. They may be working the muscle, but what's the point in working the muscle if it's not going to make you sprint faster? Look, I did a podcast on while power cleans our waist, or whatever, episode 93 or 92. Then I redid it at 95 for something else. But what I basically did is a lot of these college strength conditioning programs, big time D1s, Power 5 schools, I have never had an athlete come back stronger and faster. I'm dealing with some athletes right now over the winter break, frustrated because they've lost their speed, they've lost their strength, but they're running and they're doing all this hoopla stuff that it's not necessarily to do at schools. And I don't know where the freak they get their information from. If these college coaches would test on a monthly basis, they may lose their athletes because they're not getting what they're promising the kids that they're getting. The only way to show something is, look, I've got all kind of folders. I've got all kind of numbers. I had this guy that I trained remotely from Washington. He came in and he was just amazed. I could pull up these folders and you can see the results on a month basis. But then I'll get a parent come into the gym and I'll show them that. It's like, what can you do for my kid? No, what can your kid do for me? I'm showing you all this stuff. It's not about me. It's about your kid. They're going to work and get it done, So another thing about box squatting, I know I've got to keep going, but about box squatting versus regular squat. Remember, earlier I said regular squatting builds more integrity. You get a little bit more eccentric strength built with regular squatting. And sometimes if the athlete's young enough, they may actually benefit from the regular squat versus the box squat. And there's people that will listen to me and trust me over time. Like those young girls, they got faster regular squatting. But with a regular squat, remember, you have to go all the way down. If you cut it short, you're going to place more stress on your ACL. So if you're in a sport that you got to cut, turn, twist, and whatnot, you are hurting that ACL, and you're more likely going to have an ACL injury or have to have surgery. So that's why I like to build some type of structural integrity by making sure that they go all the way down, producing compression forces, not shearing forces on the knee. So when you drop your hips below your knee, you take that hamstring to your calf, you're actually creating compression forces, which are actually good for the knee, which helps with absorption of landing, jumping, running, cutting, and so forth and so on. And so by having them regular squat, you'll find out very quickly they're increasing the range of motion. They're building structural integrity, which means they're developing the connection between raising and lowering the weight. They're not trying to break up that phase. So a beginner may just plop on the box and they're not utilizing the static dynamic. They're just kind of plopping and standing up with their feet spread out. So that's not going to help do anything. So that's why, like, I'll have these athletes and I'll make sure that we're going on the right path. And if I test on a monthly basis, because just like that one kid, he's not improving by doing a regular squat. Well, I know he's not going to improve. Most of the time, if you have to place a bet, they're not going to improve on a regular squat unless they're young enough. You got maybe ninth grader or less that will improve, but they have to squat ass to grass, hamstring the calf. Again, repeat, hamstring the calf. If they're young enough and they do that, they will get faster. But there's going to be a point in time where then you got to switch the modality of getting the box squat, because now they're older, now they're taller, now they know how to squat and change direction with the weight. Now you need a tool to break up that change in direction because they know how to lower. Now they got to learn how to sit and explode so that they can utilize the static dynamic method, which increases rate of force development and absolute strength again at the same time. I don't know how many times I'm going to say it, but you'll get people ask all kind of questions. But again, with a regular squatting, being that you do have to control the eccentric force portion of the bone, it makes you more sore. It takes a little bit longer to recover from. Well, guess what? The young kids, they can recover from anything. They have a hard football practice, they're dead dog tired at the end of football practice or lacrosse practice or whatever practice they're doing. Then as soon as the coach talks, they're trying to play pickup on the side and what's the heck's going to go on. And so again, so that's all I have for you. So again, this is the episode, Why We Box Squat. Hopefully I covered everything. If you have questions for me, feel free to reach out, info@Explosive Mechanics. You can reach me on Instagram at Explosive Mechanics, Twitter at Explosive MEC. So anyway, that's Why We Box Squat. We can kill two birds with one stone. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.